Hello and welcome to part 2 on the different types of mothers. In the last video, I talked about the total mother, the black mother, and the victim mother. In this video, I will touch base on the narcissistic mother, the histrionic mother, and the depressed mother. So if you missed the first part, I invite you to watch it because, as I explained there is not only one type of mother, because as human beings we have complex personalities and only one profile does not define the complexity and the uniqueness of a human being. This means that you can find your mother some traits of different profiles. However, I would like to specify that with the first 3 profiles discussed in the first video, I talked about maladaptive behaviors on the part of mothers towards themselves and their children, while with the 3 profiles that I will discuss today, we enter the realm of mental disorder traits. Also, I would like to reiterate that my videos are not meant to diagnose your mothers, but rather to shed light through some common traits to your family situation, understand what the dynamics have been, and maybe take away beliefs and guilt about you that don't deserve to be there. Moreover, you can understand how the relationship with your mom has influenced the formation of your personality and therefore the kind of approach you have in your relationships with others. Let's start with the narcissistic mother. We could talk about this for days and this because it has been a topic of great interest in the recent years. So I will start by saying that typically a narcissistic mother is exclusively and possessively close to her children and feels threatened by their increasing independence. This results in a narcissistic attachment pattern with a mother considering the child exists only to satisfy her needs and desire. A narcissistic mother will often attempt to control her children with threats and emotional abuse. Personal boundaries are often ignored with the goal of shaping and manipulating the child to meet the mother's expectation. They may berate their children for showing weaknesses, being too dramatic, being selfish, or failing to meet expectations. Children of narcissistic mother learn to play their parts and show off their special skills, especially in public or for others. They typically do not have many memories of feeling loved or appreciated for being themselves. Instead, they associate their experience of love and appreciation with conforming to the narcissistic mother's demands. So now I'm going to describe what it's like to live day to day with a narcissistic mother. She's the woman everyone admires. She's a judge, lawyer, doctor, or teacher. She smoothly balances being socially nimble while contributing to the community in a way that leaves others in awe. In their eyes, she's a superwoman, and most people don't know that the superwoman has a flaw: narcissism. Boys and girls of narcissistic mothers are both dealing with a deficit of maternal nurture that was missed in their upbringing. In regard to sons, there are 2 different ways in which development may have gone. The first scenario is when you were a child, you desperately sought praise and validation from your mother, bending to her will, and this may also have led you to be labeled as mama boy because you did everything your mother asked of you just to please her. And as an adult, you can't appreciate your own needs and you may end up with a demanding, narcissistic woman as a partner because she's all you know until she will exhaust you. The second scenario is that you may identify with your mother and become a narcissist yourself. You are successful, mom is happy because you reflect well on her, and you assume that women should admire you too. But where is the empathy necessary for a good relationship? Therein lies the problem. In the case of a daughter, the narcissistic mother may act with the latter as an extension of her need to show off. So the question is, are you pretty enough? Are you smart enough? Are you too heavy or too thin? What about your hair? Even so, a narcissistic mother might compete with you as well, especially because of your youth and sexuality. Deep down, your self-esteem is damaged. You have not been validated for who you are. Instead, you have avoided her judgments or pleased her. When you try to identify yourself, it's a struggle. And sometimes the best solution is to identify with your mom's narcissism and become a narcissist yourself. You desperately need validation, which cannot be filled no matter how rich or beautiful you become. Your love for yourself originates in the perception of your parents' love. This is a detriment that is difficult to undo. At the other end of the spectrum, narcissistic mothers can produce daughters who become perpetually compliant. They become overly pleasing and often settle for men who do not appreciate them, reenacting the deprivation of their youth. And now it's time to talk about the histrionic mother. Although they share similarities with narcissistic mothers, histrionic mothers have dramatic theatrics, excessive emotionality, and an over-reliance on their sexuality and appearance as strengths, which may be distinguished factors with the narcissistic mother. At first glance, it may be difficult to distinguish between a narcissistic and a histrionic mother. Both can be exploitative. Narcissist needs replenishment, histrionics crave validation and constant reassurance. Both play manipulating scenarios to bring attention back to themselves and their agendas. Both can be self-centered. Narcissists are obsessed with maintaining their superiority and status. Histrionics more with their appearance and sexuality. Both can appear charismatic and vibrant, naturally persuasive and charming to others. However, while narcissists feel empowered to belittle, abuse, and exploit, histrionics feel empowered to always be the center of attention. And I mentioned in the beginning, histrionic mother seeks to be noticed in an exaggerated manner. In this sense, they may become extreme in their tone of voice or laughter. They may dress inappropriately, be seductive, use victimhood, cry over any trifle, exaggerate or magnify their problems, or even lie. And as they get older and they cannot attract attention with their beauty, they tend to seek it with dramatization of illnesses or exaggeration of symptoms of real illnesses. The consequences for the child are truly dramatic. A child with a histrionic mother will soon find themselves becoming the parent of their parent. The child will eventually become the unnatural caregiver figure of the mother-child pair. The histrionic mother loves to show off and seduces and wants to look younger by embarrassing her children with her quirky and mischievous ways, and they are likely to feel ashamed of her and try not to be seen in public in her company. Also, the histrionic mother has an effect on the emotional development of children and differs according to gender. With daughters, there is a tendency to establish a competitive relationship or to underestimate them, which generates depressed and dependent daughters because they seek their mother's acceptance without attaining it. But with sons, the consequences are worse since they tend to eroticize, I don't know how to say this word, the relationship from childhood turn sons into kings of the house, and triangulate their relationship with husbands. This results in an emasculated man who will never be able to establish a mature relationship with a woman. And now let's jump to the last type of mother, the depressed mother. Here we can distinguish two interactive patterns, the intrusiveness or withdrawal. So we have the intrusive mothers that show themselves to the child with hostility and intrusiveness by abruptly interrupting every activity of the child. In this context, children experience anger, withdraw from the mother to limit her intrusiveness, and internalize an angry coping style based on the defense of autonomy, which is perceived as constantly threatened. While on the other side, the withdrawn mothers are disengaged, unresponsive to their children's calls, emotionally cold, and uninvolved in the child's activity. So remember that it's in the interaction mother-child that the child regulates their own emotional states. So a depressed withdrawn mother has the same effect as an emotionally unavailable mother because the children are unable to self-regulate to the negative maternal state and end up developing behavior of passivity. So if maternal depression begins in the child's adolescence years, the consequences can range from conduct disorders to substance abuse. But when the onset of maternal depression occurs during childhood, the effects become more tangible at the emotional affective level, because not only it affects the emotional regulation, in fact they have difficulty recognizing and regulating emotion, but also they engage in a defensive coping style. A depressed mother can also have a different impact based on the child's gender. In fact, statistics have shown that male children are more likely to experience maternal depression than their female daughters. Depressed mother tends to make negative evaluation of her child's behavior, and they will build a negative image of their child. So the child will structure their personality based on the emotions that the mother gives back to them. And since depressed mother feels less effective in their role, they employ maladaptive parenting techniques. And obviously, a child is unable to mentalize the maternal distress and will simply feel unwanted and rejected. And it will also feel responsible for the maternal behavior and learns to be for her and not for themselves. In other words, the children will internalize their mother's needs and renounce their own process of individuation. The depressed mother who leads a meaningless life, often due to the abandonment of her own dreams to conform to the needs of the family, also makes her children melancholy, who feel abandoned by a mother figure who lacks energy. It may happen that they too live a life without interest, without passion, without joy, that they become early adults to help her, or that they remain childish and dependent on her. So we are done with the 3 profiles, and to recap, in both videos I talked to you about the typical traits of 6 types of mothers and the repercussions they had on their children in childhood and also in adulthood in their relationship with themselves and others, or themselves and others. And as you noted, for all the mother types, the effect on the children were either one of the total mirroring and therefore modeling of the maternal profile, or the one of aversion, whether manifested in rebellion or withdrawal. The problem arises when these traits are later restored with your children because they are learned as something familiar and therefore imprinted in your behavioral code. So if you recognized yourself as the child of a particular type of mother, and if today you are a parent, try asking yourself what attitudes of your mother you suffered as a child and yet unconsciously are repeating with your children. The second one is, what are those behaviors that you disliked so much in your mother that perhaps today you have become the one to carry the baton? If you enjoyed this topic, you could click like and subscribe to my channel to stay updated on my upcoming videos. And for now, I just say to you, see you next time. Bye. Ciao.